Okay, my full name is Martha Jane Davis, maiden name Solesbee. Yes, they might have used the Jane part of the name because my grandmother's middle name was Jane. No, my sister called me Martha, though. Born in Boise, Ada County, Idaho. Oh, June 10th, 1937. My dad was an auditor, and then he ran for the county auditor, but he didn't win. So then, I think partly because my sister and I found paint and painted up in the trailer park, they were asked to move anyway, so they moved. That was the last time I lived in Idaho. Not really. There was a large Mormon group there, though, and my mom was not a member yet. But my dad was a strong member. Lived in multiple houses, and people say, "Where are you from?" I never knew what to say. So I was born in Idaho. I've lived in Spokane, Washington, Hermanston, Oregon, alternately like that across the Columbia River, so it was pretty much the Northwest. I seem to have the most memories of Wallowa, Oregon, which is one of the few places we've gone back to, and the town didn't change. I was glad I've moved. In that house, it was 2-story with a full basement. Probably at least 5 bedrooms. That's the only place I remember having my own room. And in those days they built, like your dresser, built into the wall. Behind that is an attic. So I loved that little room. It was up on the 2nd floor. It was neat. That one had steam radiators, but I don't remember them really working, so maybe it was converted to some other heat, which I don't even recall there. But we had running water and all, yeah. I remember the activities more than the house itself. Like raising that little piggy. I wrote a story about that. Cute little piggy that I sold finally and got a bicycle, my first bicycle when I was 12 years old. Bought it myself with that money. And Barbara and I had to take care of the chickens in the chicken coop, which was a garage at one point. And we liked that, really. And then my brother had permission to shoot the sparrows so they wouldn't eat the chicken food. So he liked that. And Barbara and I did two-handed sawed down a tree my dad wanted, not so close to the house. And we had to chop off chicken heads when it was our turn. And I got a real lesson out of that one. Chopped his head off, and he goes running with no head. I didn't know they could do that. His head's lying there going... That was graphic that day. Oh, I'm not sure if I remember it or if I remember them saying it, but I followed my 2-year-older than me sister out on a log in the lake. And then I go over there and fall off. So it made a big stir with the group that was watching. That's the earliest thing I can think of. My older sister, Barbara, really had a lot of fun with me, but she could be mean when she wanted to be mean. You have to learn to stay out of that area. And then my next one in line was Daryl. He was too young for me to go to a dance with, which was annoying. And both my sister and I used to wish we had an older brother, but that may have had problems. So maybe I'm lucky he was younger. And then, let's see, after him would be Judy. Judy was 5 years younger than me, so a little bit too much space to do a lot of playing with, but she looked up to me. And I'd do stuff like paint the baby doll carriage I was through with and give it to her for a present, and she loved it. And after that was Howard, and he was a smart little guy, and I would get my Shakespeare out when I was tired of reading, and I'd say, "Howard, here, read from here to here for me." And then I'd fill in a word he couldn't get, but he did good. He grows up and he thought I was so neat for making his head so fat, because I'd say, "Gosh, Howard, you're so smart, you do that so well." And then after him was Susie, who was the sweetest thing ever, but she was Down syndrome. And boy, she gave us kids a hard time, because boy, we had to watch her. And one day she pulled the drawer out of the built-in wall in the bathroom in that house. That was in Portland, Oregon. And I was a teenager then, but she pulled that drawer out and we couldn't open the door then. "Susie, open the door." We're looking through the crack and we could see the toothpaste all over the mirror and the wall, and we're like, "What is she doing to this stuff in there?" So finally one of the littlest kids got to crawl through the outdoors bathroom window and go in there and get Susie out of trouble. She was a handful, but just as sweet as could be. Oh, it was just something that occurred to me. Gee, I don't have a date or anything, and if he was older, I could just go over to the dance with him.
Okay.
I went to one once just by myself. Boy, that is no fun. Most girls don't even do it. They just go with their buddy girlfriends, but I learned. Oh, in school, pretty popular to play jacks and baseball at recess. And then in high school age, I liked volleyball, so I was on the high school volleyball team. And the women's baseball team must have been hurting for players. They came out and recruited Barbara and me when they saw us out playing baseball. So we went on the women's team downtown, and that was fun. Probably. I liked my BB gun, but there is a story on that, too. I was out there playing westerns. We watched a lot of Roy Rogers in those days. That was the big matinee. And I'm going, dance, partner, dance. And I was shooting that BB gun in the sand at my sister, that's 5 years younger, feet. And she ran in the house and told Mom I was shooting at her, and her feet are all shot. And I did not. I said that was just sand stinging her feet. So Mom took the BB gun. And then I forgot all about it. And about, I must have been 40 by the time my brother, Daryl, the one that's 3 years younger, told me what happened to my BB gun. He got rid of the guilt. He says, do you remember your BB gun? Yeah. He says, do you know what happened to it? No. He says, Mom put it way up in the closet, and I found it. So I went down to the neighbor's house about a half mile down, and I traded them for this cool leather football. And I go, oh, you did? And he says, yeah. And then on the way back walking, I thought, gee, Dad's going to say, where'd you get that leather football? So I just pulled the cover off of it. And that's what happened to my BB gun. When I was a kid, I loved outdoor stuff. Yeah, I liked all of the things like badminton, or I didn't know how to play tennis, but anything outdoors, and I liked swimming. We'd go to a pond if there was one in the area, and we'd go swimming in the pond. I've always wondered if the city drained anything bad into that. I've always wondered, because I love floating down that ditch and going out into the pond. So where did that come from? It was Hermiston, Oregon. That's kind of deserty. What was that water? But I like the outdoors. A lot of outdoor stuff.
Ever seen it?
Oh, everybody remembers Gone with the Wind. Yeah, that was cool. And our movie stars back then were Doris Day and Rock Hudson. Everything was nicely censored. And then later in life you find out Rock Hudson was gay, and you go, because he was the one the women chased. Boy, he was Mr. Handsome. Yeah, there was the good old days movie stars. Oh, yes.
What were they?
Well, let's see, with 5 younger brothers and sisters. I had tons of child care experience. Did some cooking, but lots of dishes. And every Saturday, they wanted our homework to be really good, so we didn't work during the week that way. But every Saturday, we all had our chore. Sometimes it was the bathroom cleaning, sometimes the kitchen. We definitely had chores. I still don't like doing dishes. I really don't. I could skip that forever.
Nice.
We earned, in fact, I remember that when I was in 6th grade, I was really into that. Making a list, 10 cents for that. I did this, that's a nickel. I did that, that's 20 cents. And Barbara would say, what do you even do that for? Mom's just going to borrow it from you. And I didn't remember that either, but she did. She figured I always ended up loaning it. I was a real saver.
Yeah.
I loved making up that list and saving it.
Okay.
And I didn't pay much attention until Wendell and his car, and it seemed like it was around 39 cents a gallon, something like that.
Okay.
And a hamburger was 4 pounds for $1. Oh, that was interesting. We both applied at Beckman Instruments when we were first married down here, and they knew I'd had these neat business classes at college, so I go into the job interview, and they said, oh, nobody's here. I'll come back later. And I thought, they aren't interested. And Wendell gets hired. And so a week later, they called me. I was floored. And they said, yeah, come in. Mr. Taggy's here now. And so they interviewed me. And I ended up working for 2 underbosses of the big boss in the accounting department. Oh, yeah. So they hired me in for something like $1.80 an hour. And Wendell's was only, what, $1.65 or something?
They hired you for like $2.06. I was getting $1.95.
Maybe it went up later, but anyway, the higher end was $1.80-ish, and yours was under mine, so I went, they're giving me more than you. It didn't last, huh? I loved it. I loved it. Well, actually, there was no kindergarten. I don't know if it was the towns we were in, but no kindergarten. And then first grade, oh boy, we got everything at our house. We got the diphtheria, we got whooping cough, measles, mumps. And the mom said I missed half of first grade. But I remember coming back, and the teacher said, we want to all do this little song in a circle to welcome Martha back. And I was like, oh. And I remember the report card, that little young age, it said, shows leadership ability. And I thought, I wonder what that is. But I remembered one event. The teacher says, now if you kids are all really quiet during your heads down time, whoever's the best is going to get to pick the story. And I said to my table, because I had this really neat story I wanted her to tell about the kitty or something. And I said, okay, you guys, if we lie still and we're quiet and we don't move, we're sure to win, so don't even move. So we all put our heads down there for our little nap time, and we won.
And who told the story?
And the teacher let the story go. I don't remember if she read it, probably, because we were pretty young.
Okay.
I didn't allow myself to have a worse subject.
Wow.
I did not. After third grade and up, I was dead serious. By sixth grade, if I didn't get straight A's, I was in ready for tears, man. So I did get straight A's. And Miss Markovitz, I remember her, she had the whole class write to me when we moved. And I thought, aw, I got letters from all these kids. So that's when we had just moved to Wallowa, Oregon, where I continued to go for straight A's. White Salmon, Washington. First two grades, smaller, but you learn both ways. So this smaller school, I had the best science teacher. He made me just love science. And we got to look at the slides under the microscope, and we get pond water and watch the amoebas divide. And I thought, oh, this is so neat. And then he was going to move. But I also had a very good math teacher, a German lady, Mrs. Daubenberg. And she would say, now this is zero. Well, up to that age, at that time, there was no algebra, and so we thought everything's a plus number. Didn't even think about it. She marches across the room plus, and then she marches across the room minus. These are -1, -2, and I thought, oh my gosh. So we learned algebra and geometry from her, and then we moved again. So I had high school in big high school in Portland, Oregon. And that one, they have several big high schools. This one's like 3-story all brick, and someone in our ward saw it and says, hey man, that looked like City Hall down there. I go, yeah, it was big. So I moved in there as a junior and decided to run for a class office so I'd look good for a scholarship. And my mom said, why don't you wear a bandeau? You know, Martha Davis for secretary, I think I ran for. And Barbara was so mad because a friend told her, you guys, she'll never get it, because we were new in the school. Well, my counselor calls me in and says, actually, you're not allowed to do that, but it's such a neat thing you're doing, so we're going to let everybody do it. But I'm afraid I had at least one day's jump start on them, so I got elected. So I was that junior class secretary. Got a kick out of that. Looks good on the resume.
Yep.
BYU. Yep. In fact, I got a scholarship to BYU and Oregon State, and I thought, oh, yeah, they have co-ed dorms going on out there. Boys and girls in the same one. Ooh, I got to go to a school where there's some standards. So I definitely wanted to go to BYU. Yes, in high school, cashmere came out. And the girls had cashmere sweaters and knee-high socks, cashmere knee-high socks. Well, we had a theme in MIA. It was Dare to be Different. And the same as Young Women, Young Men, Mutual Improvement Association, it used to be called.
The church.
It's the church one.
Okay.
Then they changed it to Young Men and Young Women.
Okay.
But MIA is much easier to say. So anyway, that made me go, I don't have to have a cashmere sweater or knee-high socks. And so I would kind of be the opposite on things that were fads. I still dress the way I want to dress. Who cares what the style is? I have never really had heroes, but yeah, Roy Rogers was somebody we looked up to. And I got to admit that he and his wife were good people. And in fact, we were at the Rose Parade in Portland, Oregon, and here they come marching down the street. Roy Rogers was the Grand Marshal. And he rode his horse right over to my sister Susie.